Hello everyone, my name is Edu and this is Ready Go Expat. Moving to a new country on your own or even with a partner can feel a bit lonely in the beginning. If you don't speak the local language, things can even get a bit harder. I moved to Qingdao in China in 2015 on my own and I only knew 5 basic expressions in Chinese. I knew I was going to meet other foreigners and work with other foreigners, but I wanted to meet the locals in order to, step out of the expat bubble. In this video, I asked friends in China the question, how difficult is it to make Chinese friends? Can Chinese people speak English? And can foreigners communicate with them even though they themselves can't speak Mandarin? Ready? Go!
Difficult. Of course, it is difficult if you cannot speak Chinese and they do not speak English. In that case, it's difficult. However, if they speak a little bit of English, it won't be any problems with that. They're very friendly in general. They like to hang around. Hang around foreigners.
When I got here, everybody told me. Actually, before I came here, I was like with this, plan of making lots of Chinese friends, so I could actually get to know the culture better and to actually grasp the language faster as well, which is part of the culture. And most people who I would talk to, they would say, well, it's not as easy as you think. But in my experience, it's been kind of like half and half. I guess since I've been here for, 3 to 4 months now, so I haven't had the chance to actually build deep friendships with anybody. But I think people have been very approachable and friendly, and they start conversations. They invite me over. I was invited to family gatherings and things like that. I even went to a Chinese wedding. So I think this is I felt really welcome, and I think it's like the beginning of great friendships.
It depends on you. There's a barrier of the language. So first of all, you start meeting people that speak English, which in a city like Nanchang is not a huge amount of people. But then with the apps, with the technology, and with the time going by, you start meeting people that has the same interests of you, and we make an effort. So I think it's, making friends is difficult. Making acquaintances is easy, but making friends is difficult in any part of the world. But I don't think China is much different than any other place I lived in.
Really, it's not difficult to make Chinese friends. They're really friendly and social, and they are foreigners obsessed. They say, "Weigeran" means foreigner in Chinese.
I guess it depends on who you meet. Some are very friendly, some are very open-minded, some are they don't know a black person, but yeah, most of them are friendly. Yeah.
Sometimes we assume that if you speak Chinese, it's easier for you to make Chinese friends. However, if you speak Chinese well enough that you understand everything that people around you say, you kind of get jaded, especially if you're like a person of color or something like that. So for example, I've met a lot of people who I thought were amazing until I heard a comment that I was like, oh, that's too bad. So sometimes when you don't speak Chinese, right? And here people are very nice. People tend to be very nice to foreigners, right? So they will take you out, they will buy you dinner and everything. And if you don't speak Chinese, it's so easy for you to make friends because you will see that, you're like, oh my God, this person is so nice. And obviously most of them can speak English a little bit. So you'll be able to make friends for sure. However, yes, if you speak Chinese, maybe it'll be easier to communicate, but sometimes because of that and some cultural differences, it might be a little bit more challenging for you to create deeper connections.
I find it difficult to establish friendships with Chinese people. I would say mostly because of the language barrier. Although I have friends who speak English perfectly, so I shouldn't say the language, but more like the culture barrier. So there are things that you say in English and you think you mean something, but the way that's being perceived is completely different from what you mean.
I've only been in China for about 4 months now, the beginning of the 4th month, And we do live in a more rural area. And so, I mean, I've heard that it's not so hard in bigger cities, but there's very few people here that speak a level of English that makes it easy to communicate. So in 4 months of meeting people, I could say I've made 2 Chinese friends, one of whom was a friend that my husband had from before. So I guess one friend that I made myself. So here in the rural areas, it can be a little bit difficult since I don't speak Chinese and most people don't speak English, but people are friendly. It's just, you can't quite develop the deep friendships when there's that big of a language barrier.
Personally, for me, it wasn't that difficult because I'm always outside playing basketball, playing soccer and stuff like that. And Chinese people love basketball. So I'll go out, play basketball. Even though I couldn't speak the language, some of them will whip out their phones and try to translate, take you out for a drink after basketball or eat, you know, shao kao or something like that. So yeah, for me, it wasn't that difficult, yeah.
Well, when you first get to China and you don't speak the language, then you can use Baidu Translate and WeChat Translator, you know, to communicate, to get by. But of course, it's not easy to, you know, connect in like a deeper level. But at the beginning, I used to hang out with my students. Like we used to go to the cinema, to restaurants. And even though this might seem a bit awkward in some countries, it's totally fine in China. And students, like adult students, would invite us, you know, the foreign teachers, to go out and stuff. And then once you get to know a bit of the culture and you can speak more of the language, it's easier to, you know, to talk to people and, you know, make friends. Especially because there's one thing very interesting in China is that depending where you go, it's not very common to have foreigners around. So they're very curious to know where you're from, what you do, what you think about their country. And at the same time, they want to share with you, you know, traditions, customs, the dishes. So sometimes will invite you to cook dishes so that you can know their culture. They're very proud of their cuisine, for example. So I was invited to like 4 weddings in 4 years. And it's this gap between this cultural gap is actually what makes us bond maybe a bit easier than, I don't know, another Western country, for example.